Good morning. Today we are taking up chapter 14, and it is something like this. In this chapter, we find that Paul is attending and nursing Mrs. Morel in Sheffield, and he finds out that Baxter is in a hospital. He also comes to know that Baxter is recovering but is in depression as no one visits him. So Paul decides to visit him. He goes to the hospital, feeling that he has some kind of connection with Baxter. He not only feels sorry, he feels that he owes him something and wants to cheer him up. We also find that Paul and Clara do not meet often, but when they do, Paul tells her about Baxter, and we see that Clara is filled with anxiety and blames herself for not treating Baxter properly, and also agreeing to the fact that she has not been handling her relationship with Baxter carefully. Then she goes to meet Baxter and gives him money and flowers to make amends and to show her concern. She is pleased that Baxter feels intimidated by her. She has a feeling of satisfaction when she sees that Baxter is scared of her. Paul continues to visit Baxter and forms a very close connection with him, while Mrs. Morale's health keeps on declining and Paul is taking care of her, but both Paul and Mrs. Morale are scared as they are faced with reality, the reality of death. This closeness is tense, and both are filled and they are full of fear. They understand how much they depend on each other and what life might turn out to be. Mrs. Morale talks about her marriage, and Paul realizes how unhappy and bitter she has been throughout and feels sorry for her and her marriage with his father. She is the most important person for him, as we all know, and it fills him with pain that he himself is a part of her pain as he is a part of her life. Meanwhile, Paul and Clara are not really close to each other, but Clara reminds him of her birthday that is approaching, and the pair arrange a trip to the seaside. Then they both go on a trip, and Paul keeps on talking about his mother, and he is horrified that she does not want to die. He tells Clara that she is determined to live although she is suffering from severe pain, and it is difficult for him to see her like that. It frightens Clara that Paul cannot bear to see his mother in pain, and his wish that she should die. Paul informs Baxter that he wants to go abroad and he has no future plans for Clara. And we find that Baxter too opens up to him and tells him he wishes to get back together with Clara. Baxter also asks him about the scar that he has on his face, and then Paul tells him that it happened when he fell from the motorcycle. The misunderstanding regarding Baxter's attack is cleared. No, he fell from the bike that day, and this misunderstanding that Baxter attacked him is cleared, and Paul wants Baxter to know that he does not hold any grudge against him. Again, the feeling of death grips Paul while he is walking back home, as everything appears futile to him. When he goes to his mother's room, she is awake, but she is quite fretful. Paul feels disheartened that when his mother will not be there, no fire would be there in the room, indicating how he feels that the fire is the life force when he is around his mother. Paul goes to see Miriam when he receives a letter from her. She tries to soothe and comfort him, but then Paul feels tormented and he does not appreciate Miriam's gesture, but he resents it. Annie and Paul are having a difficult time as their mother is not keeping well and there is too much tension. And they try to relieve stress and tension by spending some time with friends. And Mrs. Morel feels relieved when she hears laughter of her children. We find Paul is doing his utmost to comfort his mother, and she remains determined not to die as she feels his life will be lonely and unhappy. We find that her pain as well as her condition is becoming unbearable. Still, she is enduring everything for him. Paul decides with Annie to give her all the dose of morphia to put their mother to rest. He crushes the medicine and puts in the milk and gives it to Mrs. Morel, who drinks it. And next morning, she is still alive, but in the late morning, she passes away. When Mr. Morel comes home, he is informed of her death and he takes the news calmly. Although he is shocked for a moment, but then he goes to eat his lunch. This throws a great deal of light on the impact of the death on him as there was no love between them. After spending time with friends, when Paul comes home, he finds his father is waiting for him as he is scared of being alone with his dead wife in the house. And Paul sees how deeply he is affected by the death. Mrs. Morale is buried with William. Later, he finds his father all he is frightened one night as he had dreamt of Mrs. Morel. But then Paul informs him that he always had pleasant dreams about her. We find Paul making arrangements for Baxter and Clara and insists that Clara wants a Baxter when Baxter has certain doubts. He goes with Baxter to the station to receive Clara, and Clara, we find her quite detached and distracted. Later, Clara compares Paul and Baxter and concludes that Paul lacks commitment in relationship as he is a coward, and Baxter is in a way strong as at least he is ready for commitment. Again, we find Paul being suicidal as he has lost love and desire to live as his mother is no longer around him. While Baxter, who has recovered from his illness, has gained an appreciation for life, and Clara has also matured as she does not take anything for granted. While we find that Paul is isolating himself totally. This is all for today. Thank you.